Hey everyone, my name is P and welcome to a Pokemon White Hardcore Nuzlocke using only Pokemon whose name starts with the letter S. Any Pokemon whose name doesn't start with S is banned. So, for example, I can use Sandile but not Krokorok or Krookdile, and I can use Stoutland but not Lillipup or Herdier. My rule set is on screen right now, but it's basically a regular hardcore Nuzlocke rule set. I also like to be transparent, so I do use rare candies in almost all my runs. I save time and energy, but I lose EVs in the process, and I think that's a fair trade. I also use the species clause, meaning I can reroll duplicate encounters, but I can only use one of each individual evolution line. Okay, let's get started. We start in New Vema Town, in our bedroom with our two rivals, Sharon and Bianca. We each get to pick a starter from this mysterious box that I found on my front porch this morning, and I choose Snivy, who gets the name Simon. Simon has a jolly nature, which is plus speed and minus special attack. That's pretty good for a future superior that's gonna have access to coil. Now, I fight these two a combined 14 times throughout the main game, and if you include N in my rivals, that's another 4 times, plus the pseudo champion fight. I'm letting you know in advance that I'm skipping every single one of them except for the first battle against Sharon at the trainer school. But anyways, we beat both of them in a pressing tackle contest and we start our journey. We catch our first potential encounter, a Lillipup who I name Sadie. Sadie has a neutral quirky nature, but she won't be able to join the team until she evolves into Stoutland at level 32. We're going to move ahead to Striaton City. Here, we need to beat Sharon again in order to take on the first gym. He leads Tepig and I lead Simon. I set up a growth and Tepig uses a tail whip to lower my defense. I set up another growth on my next turn, but a critical hit Ember does over half my HP. A Vine Whip does about a third as another tail whip brings me to -2 defense. A tackle just barely misses the KO as another Ember brings me to just 8 HP. Luckily, another tackle finishes off Tepig and Sharon's last Pokemon comes out. Tackle again misses the KO and a Scratch leaves Simon with 2 HP. A Vine Whip KOs as we survive one of the only hard rival battles in the entire game. From there, it's a quick turnaround to take on Chili for our first gym badge. He leads Lillipup and I lead Simon. I set up a growth as Lillipup uses Work Up. We do this 3 times until I decide to see how much a Vine Whip does, and it's over half. Lillipup used another Work Up, so my next Vine Whip on the next turn KOs, bringing out Pansear last. I use Tackle, which gets a critical hit and does 3/4, as Pansear just uses a Work Up. One more Tackle KOs on the next turn, and we win our first gym battle while taking no damage in the process. Chili gives us the Trio badge and the TM for Work Up. Moving on, we head to the Dream Yard to get our second potential encounter, a Panpour who I name Sylvester. Sylvester has a timid nature, which is plus speed and minus attack, which isn't the best. He won't be eligible until we get a Water Stone in Castelia City, so it's in the box for him. After taking out some Team Plasma Grunts on the way to the second gym, Simon evolves into Servine. We also get our third potential encounter, a Woobat from Wellspring Cave who I name Sydney. She has a neutral docile nature, which I can't really complain about. After walking around for a while, Sydney evolves into Swoobat, making her eligible for the team. Swoobat is super fast and hits pretty hard for this point in the game, so she's a welcome addition. After a quick trip through the museum, it's time to take on Lenora and her normal types. She leads Herdier with Intimidate as I lead Simon. We set up a Leech Seed for some passive recovery as Herdier lands a takedown for a bit less than half. Simon sets up a growth and takes another takedown that leaves him at around a third HP after berry recovery. We go for a Leaf Tornado and it misses. Awesome. Takedown brings us to the red, but Leech Seed recovery gives us a little breathing room. Leaf Tornado actually connects on the next turn and KOs the Herdier. Lenora's last Pokemon is Watchog with Retaliate. Simon outspeeds and connects with another Leaf Tornado and it gets a 50% accuracy drop. Hypnosis connects through the drop and puts Simon to sleep. We stay in for our first turn of sleep and a Retaliate connects, bringing Simon down to 2 HP. We have no choice but to switch, so Sydney comes in and thankfully dodges a Retaliate. We use Hard Stamp to fish for the 30% flinch, which of course we don't get on the first turn. And a super effective crunch does 3/4. Sydney uses Heart Stamp again and we just barely miss the KO, but we got a flinch, Lenora heals and another Heart Stamp does about a third. Sydney pushes her luck once again by pressing Heart Stamp, and it flinches again. Another Heart Stamp barely misses the KO, but a Crunch misses. Shout out Leaf Tornado accuracy drops. From there, we outspeed and finish the Watchog off with another Heart Stamp, defeating Lenora by the skin of our teeth. That gives us the basic badge and the TM for Retaliate. In between the second and third gyms, we have to take down Team Plasma in the Pinwheel Forest. While we do that, we get another encounter, a Venipede who we name Sue. Sue has a hasty nature, which is plus speed and minus defense. We won't be able to use her until level 31, so in the box she goes. Since we grab a Water Stone from the scientist on the dock, we get to evolve Sylvester into Simipour. That's our third team member. Our next stop is to take on Berg and his bug types. I lead Sydney and Berg leads Whirlipede. Sydney's Air Cutter connects and leaves Whirlipede in the red, while a super effective Pursuit only does about a quarter. Berg uses a super potion and heals almost to full, as I use a Confusion, which brings Whirlipede to the yellow. We outspeed on the next turn and another Confusion takes down the bug. Second is Dwebble, who's part rock type. Smackdown threatens our part flying type, so I swap into Sylvester. He takes the predicted Smackdown for some light damage on the switch. Sylvester outspeeds, and since Dwebble doesn't have Sturdy, it goes down in one shot. Berg's ace, Leavanny, comes out last. I'm expecting a Razor Leaf, so I swap back to Sydney, who resists it. She takes less than a quarter on the switch, and since Leavanny is 4 times weak to flying, a super effective Air Cutter cleanly knocks it out. That's Berg defeated, giving us the Insect badge and the TM for Struggle Bug. Before we take on the 4th gym, we need to traverse our way through Route 4 and the Desert Resort. We get to grab a few encounters along the way, our first being a Scraggy on Route 4, who I named Sean. He's got a naive nature, which is plus speed and minus special defense. We grab the Dig TM and head to the Desert Resort. We grab a Sandile in the Relic Castle, who I named Sandy because of course I did. Sandy won't be able to evolve since neither of her evolutions begin with an S, but we really only need her for the next gym. We grab a Solosis on Route 16, who I named Shelly. She's got a neutral nature and also can't be evolved, but she learned some decent status moves, so I can't really complain. From inside the forest, we grab a Pansage, who I named Sophie. She also has a timid nature, so I guess it's a monkey thing, and she goes straight to the box because I wanted a Pansear. Heading toward the gym, N takes us on a romantic Ferris wheel ride, which made me feel a certain kind of way that I don't think I'm comfortable enough to talk about without my therapist being in the room. With a whole slew of new encounters though, it's time to take on Miss Unova herself, Alisa. She leads Emolga number 1 and I lead Shelly. Emolga number 1 connects with a hard Aerial Ace as I go for Charm, which connects, lowering her attack by 2 stages. I swap into Sandy so Emolga number 1 can't just Volt Switch out, but it tried to anyways and fails. Of course, on the next turn, Emolga 1 gets a critical hit on the Aerial Ace, bypassing the -2 attack drop, as an Assurance does about a third. I stay in and risk back-to-back crits, and fire off a Rock Tomb for 3/4, as an Aerial Ace does very little damage. Alisa uses a Hyper Potion, and I take the guaranteed damage with Assurance for about a third. Emolga number 1 fires off an Aerial Ace, getting Sandy to 9 HP, as we connect with another Assurance. I swap Sandy out for Sylvester, since Emolga number 1 can't use an electric attack on this turn, and an Aerial Ace does very little damage. A Quick Attack also does a small amount of damage on the next turn, but Sylvester's Bite KOs. Out comes the second squirrel. Sylvester doesn't want to take a Volt Switch here, so I swap into Simon. He takes some light damage as Zebstrika comes out on the Volt Switch. A Spark does around a third, and it gets the 30% paralysis because of course it does. We still get a Leech Seed off to increase our passive recovery. With a combination of Leech Seed, Mega Drain, and a Growth when Alisa decides to heal, we stall out the Zebstrika, which I'll fast forward because it's kinda boring. Last out is the second Flying Mouse Squirrel hybrid thing. Simon stays in since he's at relatively high HP and sets up a Leech Seed, but takes big damage from a Stab Aerial Ace. I swap to Sylvester, who takes an Aerial Ace quite well. Since Volt Switch is incoming, I swap to Sandy, who's immune, and she gets some recovery from the Leech Seed. I'll fast forward again since we basically swap between the two to stall out Emolga number 2's health, until an assurance from Sandy KOs. We beat our 4th gym battle while using some morally questionable stall tactics. Elisa gives us the Bolt badge and the TM for Volt Switch. The level cap goes up to 31 for our next battle against Clay, so that means we can evolve Sue into a Whirlipede and then into a Scolipede, making her eligible to join the team. Before we leave Nimbasa City, we need to check out the Pokemon musical. Yay! We get to Driftvale City and grab this hidden heart scale for later and the expert belt. Once Sharon and I take down Team Plasma in the cold storage, Clay finally shows up. He decides that we have the right to challenge him, so we head to the gym to take him on and his ground types. I lead Simon as he leads Krokorok. I use Mega Drain, which does about a half, as Krokorok uses Bulldoze, which does very little damage but does drop my speed. On the next turn, Krokorok outspeeds and hits a crunch for about a quarter. A Mega Drain from Simon KOs and recovers a solid amount of that health back. Second up is Excadrill. He sets up a Hone Claws, boosting his attack and accuracy, while I set up another Leech Seed for some passive recovery. Excadrill uses another Hone Claws on the next turn, and a critical hit Mega Drain does less than half with 2 turns of Leech Seed on top of it. I go for a Growth to increase Mega Drain's damage, but a +2 Rock Slide does big damage, bringing Simon down to the yellow. I got a swap now, so Sylvester comes in. He takes a Rock Slide for 3 quarters, but gets some health back from Leech Seed. Clay uses a Hyper Potion to bring Excadrill back to full, but a Scald brings it back into the red. Thankfully, it gets finished off by Leech Seed residual damage, and brings in his last Pokemon, Palpitoad. I swap to Sydney to dodge a potential ground type attack, but it just sets up an Aqua Ring instead. I opt to set up an Amnesia to boost my special defense by 2, but of course, a critical hit Muddy Water brings Sydney low, bypassing all my boosts. I swap into Simon, who dodges the Muddy Water on the swap. A 4-time super effective Mega Drain surprisingly doesn't KO, as Palpitoad connects with a Bulldoze for a small amount of damage and a speed drop. Clay uses another Hyper Potion to heal back up to full, and another Mega Drain brings it low again. A Muddy Water connects for some light damage and gets an accuracy drop, which of course causes me to miss my next Mega Drain. Another Muddy Water does some more light damage, but this time our Mega Drain connects and finishes off the Palpitoad. We win our 5th gym battle, which was harder than I was expecting. Clay gives us the Quake badge, but he tells us to wait for our TM for now. We start to make our way to Chargestone Cave, and along the way, Sadie evolves into Herdier and then into Stoutland, making her eligible to join the team. We also catch a Deerling, who I name Sarah. Since she's got a bold nature, which is minus attack and plus defense, she's kinda terrible, so you won't be seeing her evolve. Everyone say bye, Sarah! We get to Chargestone Cave and finally get our TM for Bulldoze. We make our way through the cave and get to Mistralton City, home of the 6th gym. To prepare, we go to the Move Relearner and use our recently acquired Heart Scales to teach Sadie Thunderfang and Ice Fang. It's time to take on Skyla and her flying types. She leads Swoobat and I lead Sadie with Intimidate and her newly learned moves. Swoobat connects with a light acrobatics, but a crunch takes down the Sydney Imposter in one shot. Unfezit comes out second. It sets up a 2-turn Razor Wind, but Sadie connects with a critical hit Thunderfang, rendering that setup move absolutely useless. Third up is Swanna. It outspeeds, but just sets up an Aqua Ring for passive recovery. That's not going to do a whole lot, as a 4-time super effective Thunderfang knocks out Skyla's ace in one shot. Skyla gives us the Jet Badge and the TM for Acrobatics. To make our way to Icarus City, we need to go through Twist Mountain. While doing that, Simon evolves into a monstrous Superior, who now has Coil. After arriving in Icarus City, we get our second last encounter of the run, a Palpitoad who I name Stuart. He's got a gentle plus special defense and minus defense nature, which isn't the best, but what is ideal is that the level cap is high enough for Stuart to evolve into his final form, a Seismitoad. While battling the gym trainers, Sean also evolves into a Scrafty, who is such a beast. After sliding around his gym, it's time to take on Bryson and his ice types. He leads a Vanillish, and I lead the newly evolved Sean. We outspeed and Vanillish goes down to a single Brick Break. We get a Moxie boost, which brings our attack up to +1. Beartic comes in second. We outspeed again and hit a Brick Break, which leaves Beartic in the red. It connects with a strong Icicle Crash, which does a little less than half damage. Bryson uses a Hyper Potion to get it back to full HP, but another Brick Break brings Beartic back into the red. We experience a little bit of deja vu as the same exact thing happens on the next turn. Weird. A Headbutt finishes off the Beartic, giving us another Moxie boost to go up to +2 attack. Third up is Krokorok. This Pokemon is actually faster than a 6th grader, so it outspeeds and hits an Aurora Beam for about half of Sean's remaining HP. The following Brick Break from Sean cleanly knocks out the giant snowflake, and Sean has claimed his first gym sweep of the run. Bryson gives us the Freeze Badge and the TM for Frost Breath. Between the 7th and 8th gyms, the story of this game starts to pick up a little bit. That leads us to the worst part of this game, Dragon Spiral Tower. The sheer amount of grunts you fight is mind-numbing. Once we reach the top, N shows off his new dragon by crashing it through a wall, of course, and we have to run around to stop him. We head to the desert resort, where Ghetsis just walks away from us casually like he's not a supervillain. We do, however, get a new encounter that I totally forgot existed. Sigilyph is in the desert resort, and since I luckily caught Sandy in the Relic Castle, we add Sheldon to the team. We continue our way to Opelucid City and get jumped on the bridge by Ghetsis' ninjas. They forced us to go to his alt-right rally since they couldn't sell enough tickets on Ticketmaster, but it ended early anyways, so that was okay. Now that we're done with Ghetsis for the time being, it's time to take on Iris and her dragon types. She leads Fracture and I lead Sadie with Intimidate to drop its attack. I set up a workup while Fracture uses a Dragon Dance to get back to neutral attack. I set up another workup, but Fracture outspeeds after the Dragon Dance speed boost to set up another Dragon Dance. Fracture sets up a third Dragon Dance, but a +2 Ice Fang cleanly KOs Iris' first dragon. Druddigon comes out second. Sadie outspeeds and connects with an Ice Fang that leaves Druddigon with literally 1 HP, as it uses Chip Away for some light damage. On the next turn, Iris heals to full with a Hyper Potion, but a Crunch from Sadie does half to avoid another Hyper Potion. An Ice Fang KOs on the next turn and brings out her ace, Haxorus. Haxorus uses a Dragon Dance to set up as Sadie uses an Ice Fang that brings Haxorus into the red. Iris uses her last Hyper Potion as Sadie uses a workup to ensure a clean KO with Ice Fang on the next turn. Sadie goes first, meaning Iris used Dragon Tail for some reason, so an Ice Fang KOs, winning us our 8th and final gym badge. Iris gives us the Legend badge and the TM for Dragon Tail. Now that we've collected all 8 gym badges, it's time to head to Victory Road. We pass through all the gates of Unova and walk through Victory Road. Wow, that was quick. People hype this thing up way too much. After a bit of theory crafting, we make our way into the Elite Four. Our first battle of the Elite Four is against Chantal and her powerful ghost types. She leads Kofagrigus and I lead Sean holding an expert belt. A Crunch lands for about half damage as a Shadow Ball does a small amount of damage. Kofagrigus' Mummy ability gets rid of Sean's Moxie, which ruins our plans to sweep. A second Crunch on the next turn knocks out the Sarcophagus, but no Moxie boost for Sean. Golurk comes out second. A super effective Crunch does half again, as Golurk uses a Brick Break for half of Sean's remaining HP. Another Crunch KOs on the next turn, bringing us to the halfway point of the battle. Chandelure comes out third, and we're a little too low to stay in. We swap to Stuart. He takes about a third from a Fire Blast on the swap. We go for a Surf, but Chandelure uses a Shadow Ball that does over half of our remaining HP, and our Surf doesn't KO. We're gonna need Stuart later on, so we swap into Sadie, who intimidates Chandelure, as a Psychic does a third on the switch. The Light Fixture misses an 85% accurate Fire Blast, as Sadie connects with a Crunch for the KO. Chantal's last Pokemon is her Jellicent. Sadie hits a hard Crunch for half, but Jellicent's Cursed Body ability activates and disables it. A Surf does around half of Sadie's remaining HP. On the next turn, a Wild Charge knocks out the Jellicent, and Sadie takes some recoil but survives. That wins us our first Elite Four matchup of the run. Our second battle is against Caitlyn and her Psychic types. She leads Reuniclus and I lead Sean again. A Crunch does over 3/4 and gets a defense drop, as a Focus Blast does what it does best, misses. Caitlyn heals with a full restore, but after the defense drop, a second Crunch KOs, giving Sean a Moxie boost to +1 attack. Sigilyph comes in second. The Sheldon Imposter does 3/4 with an Air Slash, but a Crunch that's +1 and gets a critical hit knocks out the Sigilyph in one shot. Third up is Gothitelle. Sean outspeeds and connects with a Crunch, which also crits and KOs the Gothitelle in one shot. We get a third Moxie boost as Misharna comes out last. With Sean at +3, he outspeeds and connects with another Crunch, knocking out Caitlyn's ace in one shot. Sean successfully sweeps through all of Caitlyn's team, giving us our second Elite Four victory. Our third battle of this Elite Four run is against Marshall and his hard-hitting fighting types. He leads Throw and I lead Sheldon. Sheldon outspeeds and connects with a Psychic that cleanly KOs the red Muppet. Second is Sock, the blue Muppet. This Muppet has Sturdy, so when Sheldon uses a Psychic, Sock hangs on with one singular HP, and a retaliatory Stone Edge does a ton of damage. Marshall heals to full with a full restore, but a Psychic brings the Muppet back to Sturdy. We have another one of those weird deja vu moments again, as Marshall uses a full restore and another Psychic brings Sock back to Sturdy. Now that Marshall is out of full restores, another Psychic finally sends Sock back to Sesame Street. Out third is his ace, Conkeldurr. It falls victim to the fighting type's lack of special bulk. A single Psychic from Sheldon KOs and brings in Marshall's last Pokemon, Mienshao. As you'd probably expect, one more Psychic from Sheldon cleanly knocks out Mienshao and gives Sheldon the second sweep of this Elite Four run. The last remaining member of the Elite Four is Grimsley and his Dark types. He leads Scrafty and I lead Sheldon again. This was totally by accident, so I swap into Sean right away, who takes a critical hit Crunch for very little resisted damage. The mirror matchup honors its name as both Sean and Scrafty use Brick Break, which both do around 2/3. Sean outspeeds on the next turn and finishes off his doppelganger with another Brick Break. He gets a Moxie boost as Grimsley sends out Liepard second. I'm expecting a fake out here, so I take the opportunity to swap into Sue, who takes little damage as my prediction is correct. Sue is crazy fast, so she outspeeds and knocks out the cat with an X-Scissor. Third is his ace, Bisharp. Since this glorified chess piece is 4 times weak to fighting, I swap to Stuart with Drain Punch. He takes less than half from a Night Slash on the swap. A Drain Punch hits hard, doing about 2/3 of Bisharp's HP and getting Stuart some nice recovery, while a Night Slash does half again. Grimsley uses a full restore on the next turn, but another Drain Punch does 2/3 again. Another Drain Punch on the following turn knocks out Bisharp. Krookdile comes in as Grimsley's last Pokemon. An Earthquake does a surprising amount of damage, but Stuart holds on after all the Drain Punch recovery. A Stab Surf knocks out the Rizzed Krookdile and wins us our last battle of the Elite Four, leaving only the champion. Oh, well, there goes the champion. Bye, Alder. I hope you're not randomly in the sequel for this game for no reason. Now, we gotta chase N into his nepotism castle. Wait, does N stand for nepotism? I'm writing the script right now and I'm laughing at my own joke. Anyways, the gym leaders of Unova pull up to take care of the sages, who are basically these guys from New Super Mario Bros. Wii. We eventually get into N's throne room as he makes his grand entrance. We catch Zekrom, name it S Pokemon because I'm very creative, and we take on the new champion of Unova. The king of Team Plasma leads his Reshiram, and I lead with Stuart. This monster will go first no matter what, so we take its signature move, Fusion Flare, for less than half before a Bulldoze does similar damage. Stuart hits a Drain Punch, which crits on the next turn for some recovery. This also activates his Poison Point ability, which doesn't really matter, but hey, shout out Stuart. A Hyper Beam hits for big damage and almost KOs Stuart, but thankfully he survives. A Bulldoze KOs the box legendary. Kling Clang comes out next. Stuart dodges a Hyper Beam, shout out 90% accurate moves, and connects with a Drain Punch for a third, plus some much needed recovery. Resisted Flash Cannon does about a third of Stuart's remaining HP, but that gets healed right back up and uses a full restore, which he didn't use on Reshiram for some reason, and another Drain Punch connects, giving Stuart some more recovery. Klinkklang's Resisted Flash Cannon does a small amount of damage on the next turn, and another Drain Punch brings the Sentient Collection of Gears to a third. It actually connects with a Hyper Beam on the following turn, which shows me that Stuart would have went down to the first Hyper Beam, but I'm going to choose to not think about that, and Vanillux comes out third. A super effective Drain Punch does just less than half to this, Ice Cream Cone, and it misses a Blizzard. Another Drain Punch doesn't pick up the KO, and a Blizzard actually connects this time, and leaves Stuart with 13 HP. This N guy needs to learn about 100% accurate move. A third Drain Punch KOs, and Zoroark comes in fourth. This furry bait creature is scary in more ways than one, so we swap Stuart into Sadie, who gets an Intimidate off. A Night Slash on the swap does about a quarter, but a held Rocky Helmet does a bit of chip damage. Zoroark uses another 70% accurate move, Focus Blast, but it actually connects and brings Sadie to 10 HP. A Retaliatory Crunch does basically nothing, but it does get the defense drop. Our good dog Sadie needs to survive for Getsis, so we swap into Sue on a Night Slash that does about a third. Sue outspeeds, and an X-Scissor on the next turn knocks out the ruler of Rule 34, and Caracosta comes out fifth. Sue switches into Simon, who dodges another low accuracy move, Stone Edge, on the swap. Simon sets up a Leech Seed on the next turn for passive recovery, but Caracosta's Stone Edge actually hits for a little over half. I don't want Simon to take another one of those, so a 4-time super effective Leaf Blade takes out the fossilized turtle. N's last Pokemon, Archeops, comes out. Now, my team is super low HP, and I don't know if anything can take an Acrobatics from this thing. I think Simon could hypothetically take one, but I don't really want to run the calcs because that's a lot of work. My gut says he can though, so I press Leaf Blade. We surprisingly outspeed, and a Leaf Blade does just over half. Archeops hits an Acrobatics, and Simon survives on 1 HP. 1 singular HP. That's the third time this run that Simon has barely hung on in single digits. Another Leaf Blade finishes off the Archeops, and we've defeated the champion of the Unova region. But one challenge remains. While N has his visual novel love interest moment, Getsis makes his final appearance and challenges us to battle. Getsis leads Kofagrigus, and I lead Stuart again. You don't get the chance to change your team in between this fight, so here we are. Surf does a decent amount of damage, but a Toxic connects and puts Stuart on a timer. This Possessed Sarcophagus protects on the next turn to get some poison damage and to block Stuart's Surf. It tries for the magic double protect, but it fails as Stuart connects with a Surf that brings Kofagrigus to about a third. We experience another crazy instance of deja vu. It doesn't try for the double protect this time, so Stuart outspeeds and finally finishes it off with another Surf. Getsis' second Pokemon is Bouffalant. Stuart isn't in very good shape here, so I make the decision to get some damage off with a Drain Punch that does about a third and let him go down to a Poison Jab and some Toxic damage. That's our first death of the run. I bring in Sean to take out the Bouffalant. A Brick Break brings Bouffalant into the red, but a Head Charge almost takes us both down in the process, with Sean being left in the red and recoil damage almost knocking out Bouffalant. Getsis uses a full restore on the next turn, but a Brick Break from Sean shows that it'll be a 2-hit KO. One more Brick Break knocks out the Taurus knockoff and brings out Hydreigon third. Sean is fairly low, so I decide to bet on the Focus Blast miss, but it doesn't pay off as it connects and brings our death count to 2. Rest well, buddy. Sadie comes in to take on Cameron's secret weapon. We dodge a Focus Blast on the first turn, gotta love 75% accurate moves, as we connect with an Ice Fang that does a third and gets the freeze. I decide to really test my luck here. I think that if I work up, I can knock out Hydreigon in one hit, so I press Ice Fang, it stays frozen again, and we get the knock. Oh, I'm expecting a full restore here. It stays frozen again. An Ice Fang knocks it out, and we, without a doubt, are some lucky ducks. Seismitoad comes out fourth, and Sadie is not staying in. I want to bring in Simon, but a Stab Earthquake will do a lot of damage, so I go through Sheldon to dodge a potential Earthquake. My prediction was proven correct as we dodge the Earthquake. I swapped to Simon on a relatively safe Muddy Water that does very little damage. We set up a Leech Seed for some passive recovery as Seismitoad sets up the rain. We have almost full HP, so I take the opportunity to set up a Coil, which backfires immediately as a Sludge Wave does over half and gets the 10% poison. I know I need to get rid of this thing ASAP, so a 4-time super effective Leaf Blade KOs. Fifth up for Getsis is Electros. Unfortunately, that means getting a safe switch, so we're gonna have to let Simon go down. We set up a Leech Seed and somehow survive a Flamethrower thanks to the rain damage decrease. I do make the mistake, however, of using Dragon Tail here, which is negative priority, so Simon doesn't get any damage off before going down to an Acrobatics. He was our first Pokemon, and he's the snake who lived, on 1 HP at least. I bring in Sadie. A Crunch does more than a third, but Electros uses Acrobatics, which does light damage, but also activates our Rocky Helmet. The rain ends, and another Crunch just barely misses the KO. Flamethrower is full power now, but Sadie tanks it like a beast. Leech Seed residual damage takes out the weaklessness monster, bringing in Getsis' final Pokemon, a Bisharp. We go for a Wild Charge. It does about a third as Bisharp goes for Night Slash that causes it to take Rocky Helmet damage. Another Wild Charge connects, and you couldn't ask for a better ending. It tries to go for a Stone Edge and misses. Of course it missed. Use 100% accurate moves. We've officially beaten Getsis and stopped Team Plasma. And with that, we've won our challenge and beaten Pokemon White using only S Pokemon. This challenge was a lot of fun, actually. It was really fun going through the encounters and planning out the Pokemon I could actually use beforehand. If you like this video, hit the like button for engagement. I don't know how this website works yet, but yeah, the like number going up will make me feel good, so please press it. I'm going to be doing some more of these, so subscribe to see the next one. I'll be taking a break from Unova, however, but the next one will be in Sinnoh, and that's all I'm going to give you as a hint. But again, thank you so much for watching. I've been PomminPs, or P for short, and I'll see you next time.